Good morning, everybody, and much atzlocha to all of us over here in the upcoming page. It's Amud Tes Vav Amud Beis in Tes Vav Amud Aleph. Excuse Tes Zayin Amud Aleph in the bottom of the page. I'm sorry, excuse my mistake. Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, bottom of the page. Yeah, in the very bottom of the page, Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, we are learning the halachas of Eved Ivri and Amo Ivriya. How does a Jewish laborer or female Jewish laborer in the olden days, this halacha used to apply. And the question is, how do they become slaves? How do they get out of slavery? V'chule, v'chule. This shiur is le'ilu nishma sovi mori menachem ben Akiva, Rus bas Shalom Sor bas Moshe, Aviva bas Moshe, Eni Resha bas Elchonon Yitzchok l'refus, Pnei Chai bas Gerochel, V'la'atzlochas v'tzalas, Kol ha'shvuim, all the captured people should come straight out of there right away, not 13 people at a time, all of them. And all of us should get out of our own golus. With Mashiach coming soon, the shiur is Latzlochas, a soldier, my soldier that I have to daven for him, and that is, Mazel Tov, and that is Ziv Shmuel ben Orli Efrat. Maybe he watches us somewhere. Welcome back to Peretz, Rabbeinu Peretz. Welcome back, welcome back. I wish I could give you more of a homage, but we really have to start now. We are now in Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, the bottom of the page. Ve'ela nitni, the last narrow line. Ve'ela nitni. The Gemara is asking the following question. In the previous page, in the previous lines, we saw the Shlakish coming up with a halacha, another way for an Ama Ivriya to get out of the master's domain. And that is what happens if her own father died. The reason why the Ama Ivriya is Tzayin Amud Aleph in the bottom of the page. The Ama Ivriya, why is she now staying in the house of the Odoin? Because the father sold her. Only the father can sell her. Not she herself, not the brothers, and not the sisters, and not the mother. Not even the mother. Only the father can. And therefore, if the father dies, we learn it through a Kal V'chomer that if her own father dies, she gets out of the reshus, she becomes free and gets out of the hand of her master. Now, besides the fact that this does make sense, as we're going to see in Amud Beis, because the only reason is that she's there is because of the father. Besides that, and the main thing is Rish Lakish saying there's a Kal V'chomer. What was the Kal V'chomer? I'm just reviewing Baal Peh. Rish Lakish said like this, because we say that if Simonin, what's Simonin? Puberty. When she sees two hairs, which is usually around Bas Mitzvah time, then to get out of the father's domain as a regular free girl, no, she's still under the father. Until she's 12 and a half, she's still under the father, right? And yet we see that going out of the Odoin, she does. She gets out of the reshus of the Odin through Simonim. So the death of the father, which clearly gets her out of the Odin's, death of the father, which gets her out of the domain of the father, surely should get her out of the domain of the Odin. That was the Kal V'chomer, which we'll repeat afterwards. But the Tachlis HaMaiser, Rish Lakish says, when the father dies, she gets out of the domain of the Odin. Don't get confused. The Odin is alive. Her father's name is Reuven. The master's name is Shimon. If daddy Reuven dies, then she, according to Rish Lakish, that's not the halacha. But this is what Rish Lakish wants to say now, and we're going to have a lot of give and take here. Rish Lakish says she's right away out of the domain of the ownership of the Odin. Zok the Gemore ve'ela nitni. Why isn't it written in our Mishnah? Our Mishnah mentioned all kinds of ways of getting in and out. Which ways do you have to get out of the Odoin? 6 years, Yovel, right? Pidyon, all kinds of ways. Simonim, it doesn't say in the Mishnah that the girl whose father died gets out of the Odoin's authority. Why? The Mishnah should have mentioned it, Rish Lakish. Answers the Gemara, Tana, davar sheyesh lo kitzba ktani, davar she'en lo kitzba lo ktani. The Tana tells us as follows. Something that has kitzva, which means something that has a set amount or set years or set thing, kavua and fixed, we mention it in the Mishnah. 6 years are always 6 years, Yovel is Yovel, v'chule. Pidyon is very clear amount of money. If she was sold for 6 million and 3 years are over, then it's 3 million, right? Very nice. Mashe'en ken, the idea of when the father will die, we don't know when the father will die. We don't know when the father will die. Some people die at the age of 85, and some people die at the age of 23 and a half. In other words, it's not something that is a fixed thing, and therefore the Mishnah doesn't talk about it. The Mishnah likes to talk about things that are yekish. The Mishnah likes to have things, cut and dry, yeah, with a clear cutoff point. And this is not the case by the death of the Adon, or excuse me, the death of those different business, which you also don't mention, but the death of what's his name, the death of the father is not mentioned. Very nice. Now, frag the Gemara, is that so? Veha simonin the enlem kitzva viktani. The Gemara asks a question. Simonim, the fact that a girl gets the two hairs that show the beginning of her, adulthood, so to speak, yeah, or in between puberty, then what? We say that there's no kitzva. This is not a set thing. Why? Because some people are early bloomers and some are late bloomers. Yeah, you look at the boy's face. Some at the age of 14, they have a beard, sometimes only the age of 18. In other words, the fact that the girl goes out b'simonim, then some girls are earlier than others. It's also not a very set thing. It's not that she's out of there at the age of 12 and one day. She's out of there when she has simonim. That's not set, and yet the Mishnah does mention it. So what you just told me is wrong. Yeah, you see that the Mishnah does talk about things that are more fluid and flexible. Amar Safra, answer of Safra, no. Well, when you talk about medically, you're right. Halachically, you're wrong. En lem kitzva lemala, avlesh lem kitzva lemata. What does that mean? Yeah, en lem kitzva lemala means that's true. Some people bring the two hairs at the age of 12, some 12 and a half, and some maybe 13. And you know what? At that point, every girl, once she brings the two hairs, then, there's a way to know about it. Then she gets out, and it's different ages. However, yeshlem kitzba lemata. What does it mean yeshlem kitzba lemata? Which means if a girl brought the simonim too early, well, could be she's a very early bloomer, but halacha doesn't recognize it as simonim. With all due respect, we're not here in the doctor's office, by the gynae, asking who's called a big girl. We're asking the Rav, we're asking the halacha, what does halacha view as the minimum age? And as we're going to see now, even if a girl or a boy happen to have the two hairs too early, the very early bloomers, I don't know, they eat hormones, they say nowadays the hormones, I don't know, something, they come from a race where people are very hairy, all very nice. There is a starting point, and below that starting point, halachically, she's not considered a gdoila, and she would not get out of the domain of the Adon, and therefore the simonim are considered, I wrote age as simonim, therefore the simonim are considered as something that is cut and dry, as opposed to the death of the father, which nobody knows at all when he's going to die. B'chlal not. So let's see how do we know about that minimum stage and maximum stage? The Tanya, it says, it's a Gemara in Nida Daf Mem Vov. It says as follows. Listen carefully. I thought to make it into a chart, but we don't need a chart. It's easy. Then Teisha Shonim Shevi Shtei Cyrus. Let's say a boy. Yeah, we're going, by the way, to speak about both genders, and that's what's going to get a bit confusing. Let's start to talk about a boy, and the truth is, so far it applies to a girl also. Age of 9. A boy at the age of as early as 9, yeah. Shevi Shtei Cyrus. Look, you see the boy of 9 has two hairs already, in that area of the body, and maybe he's already called a Godol. Maybe you can call him up to Kriyas HaTorah. Maybe if he's Michal Shabbos, you can execute the guy. He's two hairs. They taught me two hairs. So he's 9 years old with two hairs. Says the Brisa, that's not a question. Shuma. It's considered as a wart. What do you mean as a wart? Which means just like some warts have hairs in them, it's just like a glitch. It's a defect in his body. In other words, he happens to have two hairs, just like you have a wart with two hairs, doesn't show anything. He has two hairs that happen to grow there, but they're not symbolizing anything. I would call it's a non-indicator. It doesn't indicate adulthood, puberty. It happens to be by fluke, the guy has two hairs, like, you can have all kinds of warts all over your body. It doesn't mean, anything real. Yeah. However, that's still the age of 9 or below. Yeah. Now, second stage. Now, second stage. From 9 years and a day, ad ben yud b'shon v'yom echad. Let's say he has those two hairs, and they stay with him all the time until he or she are 12 and a day. Yeah, between 9 and 12 and a day. The oiden boy, and they still stay there the entire, time, the stage until the age of 12 and a day. Shuma. The Nekama says it's still called Shuma. In other words, if this, let's talk here about a girl, because it's 12 and a day, yeah? So let's say that girl, between the age of 9 and a day until the age of 12 and a day, she has those simonim because they started before the age of 12 and a day, right? They started before what we call bas mitzvah. Therefore, although they stayed there, they stuck there all the time, they don't indicate anything, even if they stayed there without falling, because it started too early. It stayed, it stayed. People have warts the entire lives. They have warts for a long time. It still doesn't indicate anything because it started too early. However, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer Siman. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says no. If it was such a diehard, if really those two hairs during the in-between period, they stayed there from before what we call bas mitzvah until 12 in a day, they show an indication, they indicate that she's a big girl, and yeah, already retroactively we know that at the age of 9 and 10, she was already big because the hair was there. But he also agrees that if they fell before the age of 12 in a day, then it's nothing. Now, it's a bit of a question now because we jump now from a girl to a boy. That's one way to explain this thing. Ben Yud Gimel Shana V'Yom Echad, for a boy, once he's 13 in a day, or a girl, 12 in a day, Divrei Hakol Siman, Mazel Tov, Bas Mitzvah, Bar Mitzvah, if the Simonim started, they appeared for the first time at either 12 in a day for a girl or 13 in a day for a boy, then it's a Siman. Yeah, which means, again, let's summarize. The 9 and below is nothing. Between 9 and a day until bar or bas mitzvah, they started and stayed, it's a machloikes. And once they started at the age of 12 in a day or 13 in a day, him or her, then really, definitely it's considered as a siman. So therefore, there is a kitzvah. Don't tell me simonim have no kitzvah. They do. Simonim have a kitzvah because below 9, everyone agrees it's nothing. Oh, so there is a cutoff point. And therefore, the Mishnah talks about it as one clear indicator of freedom, of liberty for the girl once she has simonim, the way we view them, which is 12 in a day, or according to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, could be earlier. And Chanami, it's a machloikis, but it doesn't mean there's no a clear cutoff point. That's the age of 9. Everyone agrees the age of 9. Mashaken, the death of the master of the father, that's absolutely unpredictable. You would ask, when does a person die? Some people it's 40, some 60, some 80, some people, the Hamas comes to their kibbutz, a lot of people, all kinds of things. And therefore, such things the Mishnah didn't speak about. So let's just kind of recap. Says Rish Lakish, and he's sticking to his guns. Rish Lakish is coming to say Kal B'choimer, that a girl whose father died gets out of the reshus of the domain of the master. Rish Lakish so far maintains his opinion. Meisiv Rav Sheshes, and now we're going to make the thing clearer. I'm sorry again for those at home. I know it's not so clear. So basically, we are about to quote a brisa, but before we quote the brisa, I want to have a look with you together at the whiteboard. Again, apologies, and I want to send you Blineder a chart which will make it much clearer. A man slave and a woman slave. Yeah, the discussion here is what kind of people get the gift, the prize. We know that it says, by the way, I'm sorry, it was Parshas Re'eh, not Parshas Shoftim. I'm sorry, my mistake, I checked it again. It says in Parshas Re'eh, if an Eved comes and he was sold to you by BSD, he works for you for how many years? The minimum, the normal amount is 6 years, right? The 6 years, then that's the minimum amount. And then when you let him go, you have to give him gifts. What kind of gifts you're going to see tomorrow? Yeah, give him wine, give him oil, give him animals, give him fruit, vegetables. Very nice. Some avodim don't get gifts, such as somebody who bought himself out or somebody who ran away. A runaway slave has a chutzpah to claim back that he wants his dividends, he wants his gifts. We say no. What kind of avodim? In other words, what ways of exiting does grant the Eved the what you call it, the matono, the hanik tanik, the ma'anak? Yeah, that is what there are 4 ways. And if you divide these 4 ways to men and women, yeah, it's 3 for each. Yeah, let's see them here. 6 years. Yeah, that's a classical 6 years, applies to both genders, right? If a person was there for 6 years, he or she, then what? After 6 years, Yendig to get a gift. Yovel is what? Both by Eved and Amma. There is Yovel. How can an Amma have Yovel? There's no Nirtza, because Yovel doesn't only apply to Nirtza. Yovel can apply to a person who worked there for 1 year, 2 years. The Yovel came at any point, even before the 6 years, he's out or she's out, he or she. So far we have 1, 2, applying to both. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a mistake. Oopa, I'm sorry. No. Age. Age is only by woman. Yeah, when I say age, I mean simonim. Yeah, that's my way in English to say simonim. For a woman, if she goes out the simonim, she was sold at the age of 3. She can do very nice things already at the age of 3. She can wash the floor. And then she was there for, I don't know, many years, more than 6. She left at the age of 2 hairs. That's the age she left. I assume bas mitzvah, but not always. At that point, when she goes, because she is over age, she gets the gifts, and that's something unique only to women. What's unique only to men? By nirza. Let's say the person was, yeah, see, it says death over here, which means if a nirza, a man opted for what? For staying there until the yovel. That's only an option by men, not by women. A woman goes out maximum bas mitzvah, she can't stay longer even if she wants to. Yeah, she can, by the way, have yud. There is a way for her to stay longer, but it's nothing to do with our sugya. There is a way for a girl to stay longer, but that's not for now. A man can be nirza, and if that nirza, after X amount of years of post thingy, is already by the odin died, then he goes free. Okay? Mashi'en can a man or woman who are not nirza, they're in the basic 6 years, they don't go free by the death of the odin, they still have to serve the son, yeah, until the end of the 6 years. So we have 4 ways of going out with pride, with what? With matonos, with gifts, and yeah, and the way you divide them are 3 for him and 3 for her. Okay, that's all very nice. What's the chiddush? We're going to see later. This is excluding the opinion that says that there are other ways to exit and get matonos. Very nice. We have 3 and 3. Oh, good question for math. How? When is 3 and 3 were equal 4? Here it is. Yeah, because 2 of them are duplicates. If the question is very quick, yeah, the money, Milsa. Yes, true. I agree. I said what I said, thank you, but Rabbi Yosef will be I won't agree with you. Okay, you're right. We follow Tanakama. I agree. I stand corrected. According to Tanakama, only the age of 12 and a day. But let's say she's a late bloomer. Let's say she saw the Simonim the age of 13. Then she won't go before the Simonim. That's, yeah, there is a point in what I said. Yeah. In other words, absolutely. From the age of 12 and a day, if she saw Simonim from that point onwards, not all girls see 2 hairs punkt at the day of bas mitzvah, together with receiving the big gift from daddy and mommy. No, some of them are later. Earlier, we don't say. Later differs from girl to girl. And if she's an alienist, it's all new story, which I don't want to go there now. The age of 20. Let's yeah, okay. Wait. Let's see. Mesiv Rav Sheshes. Correct Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes wants to challenge Resh Lakish from the Brisa. And the truth is, if you're smart enough, and you're all very smart over here, Resh Lakish is in trouble. Absolutely so. Mesiv Rav Sheshes. Rav Shimon Omer. Dalid Manikim Lahem. There are 4 types of, not 4 types of avodim, 4 types of exits, of ways of liberation, yeah, that grant the Eved or the Amo the gifts. Gimel Beish v'Gimel Beisha. 3 by men and 3 by women, as we saw. You would never have 4 cases in either man or woman. Why? Yeah, there would always be one item that's only relates to either man or woman. Ain't simonim beish. A man doesn't go out with simonim. Let's say an Eved was sold when he was 10, and then he becomes a big man. So what? Does make a difference. He stays an Eved until the 6 years are over. Ben Retzia Beisha. The death of the master after Retzia does make a difference to the woman, because Retzia just doesn't apply to her. Fact the Gemara, the obvious question against Resh Lakish, the Im Isa, and if it's true what you're saying, Resh Lakish, that a girl goes out when her father died, Nitni Nami Misas Av. Why don't you mention it? Why don't you mention if the father died that she gets a gift? There's no reason not to. Yeah, why don't you mention that? The mere fact that it's omitted means that it's wrong. The chi tema, and if you want to tell me, achinami tani v'shir, if you want to tell me like we wanted to say before, yeah, tani v'shir. What's tani v'shir? As we saw many times in Mishnayos, sometimes Mishnayos don't mention everything. They mention like a a collection of ideas of halachas, but they don't mention all the different cases. So maybe here too, the Brisa did not mention all cases. There are cases that are not mentioned. We just gave an example, like a sample of all kinds of cases, not everything. If so, it does make sense as the Gemara. All these are rules. The Ritva says it here too. These apply to all of Rashat, which we're saying now. Frag the Gemara. In this case, you can't say Tana v'Shar, says the Gemara. The Arbok Tani, it says a number. When it says the number, these are 4 cases. It's not a sample, right? If I'm telling you there are 4 people in this room, which I don't know, I'm inviting to a Hanukkah party, yeah, and I'm saying 4 favoritism. 1, 2, 3, 4 means the others are not. If it's I'm inviting you, maybe it's an example. But if it's I'm inviting the following 4 people, that is clearly excluding the others, right? So too, when you say the number 4, right, then you're obviously excluding anything else, including what? Including the death of the father. That's bad news for Shlakish. And if you tell me, if you'd like to tell me, Tana dovel sheesh lo kitzva ktani, v'dovel she'en lo kitzva lo ktani. Maybe we can pull the card we pulled before. Maybe this brisa doesn't mention anything that doesn't have kitzva, which means this brisa only mentioned ideas that are very cut and dry, that have a fixed start and a fixed end, such as 6 years, Yovel, that is very clear. And Mashenkin, the death of the Tate, is not so clear. Is that so? Mapitom, not true at all. Simonim, denlem kitzva v'ktani. Look, simonim are mentioned here by the girl. I call it age. Simonim are mentioned in the Brisa, and yet there's no beginning and end to the simonim. There's no beginning and end to the simonim. Not true. If you want to tell me, excuse me, Rav Safra says that because the simonim do have what? A starting point. There is a below simonim, there's a halachic date, which is cut and dry, which is the age of 9. Anything below the age of 9 is not considered simonim. So maybe simonim are considered, yes, as something clear cut and katsuv and set, and therefore they are mentioned while the death of the father is not mentioned, it's out. Says the Gemara, no. By the way, when it says it's out, it doesn't mean that we don't agree. We agree to Shlakish. It does take her out and of the master. We don't mention it because the Mishnah just doesn't mention these things. But halachically, they are included. Stylistically, the Mishnah doesn't want to talk about anything that's not cut and dry. But halachically, it is included, like Rish Lakish. We're trying to help Rish Lakish. Dog the Gemara, no, that's not true. Misas Odin, then lem kitzva, Bektani, yeah, excuse me. You see the death of the master, right? Look, it says death. The death of the master by the men, the death of the master after the Yovel, after Ritzia. Do you know when the master is going to die? Are you a prophet? Who are you? We don't know when he's going to die, and yet it's mentioned. So wrong. That makes the question very, very glaring. Excuse me. The death of the Odin is mentioned, and the death of the father is not exactly the same. Mitzad being precise or predictable, it's exactly the same. How come we mention the Odin and not the father? It must be wrong, Rosh Lakish. Must be the death of the father, doesn't move an inch, doesn't move a finger, doesn't do anything. Yeah? Answers the Gemara, big revolution. Misas Odin nami loiktani. Look what we do. Look how cool. No, the death, it's not mentioned. In other words, I'm going to show this to our viewers online. When we gave this list of 4, which are 3 and 3, it wasn't mentioned before what these things are, right? It doesn't say it. It says nirtza. We assumed it's the death of the master after the Ritzia. It doesn't say it. Enechanami. The Mishnah only talks about things that are cut and dry. The death of the Odin is not mentioned. So who comes instead of him? So what should be mentioned instead? Yeah. Answers the Gemara. Yeah. Says the Gemara, Ve'el arbo ma'nihu. So what are the 4 things that apply to a male slave? Shonim, v'yovel shel retzia, ve'am evir b'simonim. Yeah, the nirtza is nirtza yovel. Yeah, in other words, there are 2 types of yovel. We divided yovel into 2 because it's not the same idea. Yovel of the 6 years guy, in the middle of the 6 years the yovel came, and yovel of the nirtza. The yovel of the nirtza is another chiddush. Because what does it say in the Torah? The nirtza should work for him forever. And really, we say forever means yovel, right? Mashenken, that yovel is mentioned in Behar. It's a separate thing. Yeah, yovel, everyone goes out in yovel. The Nirtzas Yovel, there's the Nirtzas Yovel, and there's the regular guy's Yovel. And these are the 6 years, Yovel of 6 years time, end of 6 years, Yovel of 6 years, so far both genders are the same, the age of the girl, and the Yovel of the Nirtza. Masha'enken, the Odin's death, Enechanami is not mentioned. Enechanami, it's not mentioned. Why don't we mention that? Shlakish is very happy. I'll tell you why. Really, there are other things that can be mentioned. It's true that the death of the Odoin and the death of the father by a girl, they do grant the person matonos. He has to get gifts now from the heirs. Elamai, things that are not cut and dry, but all fuzzy, in reality, they're just not mentioned. They're not mentioned in the Brisa. Rish Lakish again is very happy. Give me 1 minute before I'll hear a question. 1 second. Achanami mistabra. And also, it makes sense to say what I'm saying. It's not stam edurchik dikateretz. It makes sense. The Ktani Seifa, because the Seifa says, right? We said we have 4 cases, right? 2 of them apply to both genders, and then you have 2 per each, right? That's so 6 becomes 4, right? 2 is equal to both, and then you have 1 specialized for this and the other one special for that. Wait a second. Yeah, what did we say? Why can't you have 4? Why can't you have all 4 cases in one gender? The fishen simonim beish ben ratzia beisha. We said simonim don't apply to a man. A man, right, doesn't go out with simonim, and a woman doesn't go out beratzia. So what? The im isa. But if you want to tell me, we're talking here about the death of the odoin, the ishum yamashkachas larbo. At the end of the day, a girl. Let me ask you a question. The idea that we said before we erased was death, right? You say death doesn't apply to a girl. Why not? Let's say the odon died, then he dies, right? And she goes free. Also, the death also makes a difference to the girl. But the death of the odon, yeah? Elamai must be shmamino. Must be. We didn't speak about death. We spoke about retzia and yovel of retzia. And that really doesn't apply to a girl. It doesn't apply to a girl. The retzia doesn't apply to a girl at all, and the yovel post retzia doesn't apply to her either. She's never there. But Shenken, if you thought like you originally thought it's death, then death applies to both. Death applies to a man after yovel, and death applies to a girl. Stam in the 6 years must be shmamino l'krish lakish. So again, before your question, I want to hear your question now. Yeah, and drink my tea also. Yeah, but basically, how did we come out? So far, Rish Lakish is, we didn't prove Rish Lakish to be right, by the way, but we got the claim off his back. Rish Lakish may possibly be correct. That what? Really, the death of the father gets her out of the domain of the master. That's Rish Lakish's nice combination Chiddush with the Kal V'chomer. What did the Brisa mention? Let's now see the Brisa with the maskana of the Brisa. The Brisa says 4 ways in which men or women avodim get out with big money. What is that? 6 years, both genders. Yovel of in the middle of the 6 years, both genders. Simonim by a girl, that's exclusive to a girl. And the death of the master after the Yovel, meaning, not the Yovel, excuse me, the death of the master after Nirtza, after the Ritzia, a few years or some time after the person was Nirtza and thought he would stay till Yovel, that doesn't apply to women. There's no Ritzia by women B'chlal, ever. And at that point, Odin died, that's exclusive for men. Now, Rish Lakish would say, why don't we mention the death of the master? Because if the master dies, yeah, what did I say? No, the Yovel, excuse me, I made a mistake. What I said was a Havamina. The Maskana, we don't talk about the death after the Ritzia, we talk about the Yovel after Ritzia. Yovel after Ritzia, that's the 4th item. Yeah, if the Yovel came after the person is Nirtza, he goes fancy free. That's Le'oila means till Yovel. Why don't we mention what I just said now? We don't mention death of the Odoin because it's not a cut and dry thing. We don't know when the Odin is going to die. So it's true that the person after the Odin's death does get he or she do get the whatchamacallit, the matonis, the henek. But the Brisa doesn't want to talk about things that are not cut and dry. And therefore, says Rish Lakish, so too the reason when the Mishnah doesn't mention the death of the father, because the death of the father is not kavua, it's not fixed, a cut and dry. We only talk about things that are clear. And since Yovel, age 6 years, they're all time related. Even age, we know before the age of 9, it's not going to happen. So one side of it we know. Before 9, the other knows. I have a girl at least till the age of let's say we follow Tanakama, not Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, I know that until at least the age of 12 in a day, she's by me, then I may give her gifts. We only give directions so things are clear. However, factually, yeah, if the Odin dies, or according to Rish Lakish, if the father of the girl dies, and that's his Chiddush, also there's freedom and there are gifts given. Elamai, the Brisa only wants to talk about things that are cut and dry and not about fluid, time fluid things. That's basically what we're saying now. And so far, Rish Lakish was not proven right, but was not proven wrong either. Rish Lakish survived the Brisa. Yes, Tzvi was first. Basically, of Amram. Now, Rav Amram is basically asking again, challenging Rish Lakish, and this what Rav Amram is going to challenge from is not a different brisa. It's the beginning of the brisa we saw before. It's the first part of the same brisa we saw before, which is this one with all four simonim. That's another opinion regarding the same issue. The elu manikim lahem. The following avodim are the ones which you give gifts to if they leave. Those ways of liberation, those forms of getting out of slavery, gets the Eved a matana. Ayoytze b'shonim, so far so good, 6 years. Ubeyovel, Yovel, yeah, I would say maybe regardless of when the Yovel is, before 6 years, after 6 years. Ubemisa sa'odoin, when the master dies, and that is what, again, by nirtza. The nirtza has misas odoin, the odon died, but the nirtza goes out. The amavriya b'simonim, and amavriya b'simonim, so far so good, as we all knew. What is it coming to exclude? It's excluding somebody who ran away or somebody who bought himself out. They don't get the gifts, as we're going to see later. In any event, the Brisa here, the Brisa here gives you 4 different ways for people to come out with flying colors and lots of money. If you're right, Rish Lakish, nitninami misasav. Same question again. Why don't we mention the misas av? And by the way, and here what? Yeah. And here it doesn't say number. Before it says number 4. Here we don't say numbers. Yeah. So now v'chitei matana v'shir. Maybe going to tell me Rish Lakish will now feel more confident in saying no. This time it didn't mention any number. It didn't say number 4. And maybe here this is just a sample. And there could be another way to get out. What is the way? The father of the girl died. And that's her way out. And it's just not mentioned because the Brisa is not mentioning everything. Tana v'shir. The Tana left out some other items that's not mentioned. No, the Eluk Tani, another important rule. It says, it doesn't say number, but it says the Elu. What does the Elu mean in English? Can you help me with English? I don't speak English so well. And that's right. Oh, thank you. The Elu. It says, and these are the ones who are granted the gift if they go out. So to use my moshel, let's say don't say the number 4. But I start pointing at people and say, these people, I'm pointing at specific, these are the people that are invited to the party, and they say the names, obviously means the others are not. These are the things, excluding others. If so, Eluk Tani also comes to be exclusive, and that's bad news. Why? You see, only these, and not the girl whose father died, right? Okay? The chitema, and therefore what? It's not even a way to liberate. It's not a way of oitzo. The chitema double shesh lo kitzva ktani, double shen lo kitzva lo ktani. And if you want to tell me, well, same idea. Maybe the Brisa only talks about things that have kitzva, that have a set time coming out. We know exactly when Yovel is. We know when 6 years are over. Yeah, and things that the death of the father is not clear, so we don't mention it. But simonim de'en kitzva v'ktani. Same halach again. Simonim, you don't know when the girl will get her simonim at the age of 12 or 12 and a half, and yet v'ktani, and it is mentioned even though it's a blurry thing. And if you want to tell me like Rav Safra, that simonim are considered kavua because they have a starting point, even though they don't have an end point, they have a starting point, a minimum point of below 9 years. So maybe they're called kavua. Misas Odon. Misas Odon. The Misas Odon is mentioned. Same question as before. The death of the master of what? Of the male nirtza is mentioned. Bad news. We don't know when the Odin is going to die, and yet it is mentioned. If so, according to Rish Lakish, it's scaringly similar. The death of the Odin and the death of the father, according to you, they basically do the same job. That gets the man out after nirtza, and that gets the girl out. They're both as unpredictable, right? Unpredictable, and yet one is mentioned, one is not. Why? Because one is wrong. Masber Shlakish, you're wrong. And no, the death of the father is not mentioned because it's not there. Tiyufta do Shlakish tiyufta. Ay. The Shlakish right now, oi. The Shlakish has been disproven from the Brisa. It's not really his end completely of this theory, but Rish Lakish right now is not in a good place. The Brisa seems to challenge what he said. Frag the Gemara, it's very nice you challenged him. Yes, yeah. Oh, I think what you're asking is similar to what the Gemara is about to ask. See the following question and then come back to me if you still have a question. No, but these are ways. No, but why? There's no reason. I'll tell you why. I thought of that. Am I online? Yeah, you're asking a good question. No, Shlomo is asking. Maybe really, or Kiva can tell you, really, the girl can go out when the father died. However, she doesn't get the gifts. There's no reason to say that, as you're going to see at the end of the page. Yeah, at the end of the page, we'll see there's no logic to say that, and if I don't speak it out, remind me. But it's a good question, which answer will come later. Frag the Gemara, it's all very nice. Shlakish was ki'ilu knocked out by the Brisa. V'harish Lakish kal v'chomer Omar. The Shlakish has a good kal v'chomer. The Shlakish has a very good kal v'chomer. What are you going to do with it? In other words, it's very nice to say, here's a Brisa, that this is a Tana versus a Moira, and I learned in school, Tana versus a Moira, the Tana wins. So what? If Rish Lakish has a kal v'chomer, we assume the kal v'chomer is something that he got from his Rabbeim. Kal v'chomer is not stam, my own fantastic imagination. Kal v'chomer is a set thing. And therefore, his kal v'chomer, if he does have a good kal v'chomer, maybe the kal v'chomer wins over the Brisa. You can't just kill a kal v'chomer, which is one of the 13 ways that the Tanoim told us to use, because there's a Brisa against you. This is not an Amora. It's an Amora holding a gun. He's owning a kal v'chomer. Deal with his kal v'chomer before you knock him out. Answers the Gemara, kal v'chomer prichahi. Shlakish's kal v'chomer is kal v'chomer itself, which is illogical. Not completely illogical. There's a pricha. There is a way to disprove the kal v'chomer. What is it? Let me remind us all what is the kal v'chomer. The kal v'chomer Rish Lakish is, I'm reading inside, you can flip it back if you want. To Zayin Amud Aleph, it says again, Ma simonin. What did we say? Simonim don't get the girl out of the father's reshus, right? The simonim, when the girl has 2 hairs and she's only 12, is she out of the domain of the father? I'm talking about a free girl. She lives in a nice house in Herzliya and she has a whole room and a swimming pool to herself. She's not a slave, right? This girl who is 12, she saw to hers. Everything she finds, her nedarim, her marriage rights, are they hers or his? His. Till 12 and a half, till Naira, till half a year after Simonim, right? So since Simonim are not such great sheikhs, are not so helpful when it comes to getting out of the fathers, they don't get out of the father's reshus, and yet Motzin Reshus Odoin, if that girl is an Ozeret, an Ama Ivriya in someone else's house, she does get out with Simonim, that's Mefurash, right? So too, the death of the father, who gets her out of the father's reshus, yeah, when the father dies, he loses authority over the girl. And don't laugh, it's a chiddush, because even his children don't inherit her. Her brothers don't inherit the girl bichlal. In other words, if she becomes an orphan at the age of 9, she's completely free. Yeah, nobody has rights over her marriage, over her money, over anything. There are ways how to deal with it. That's a different story. So if the death of the father, which by the father, yeah, a father who is so strong that, so weak, excuse me, the simonim don't get out of the father, and yet the death of the father does get her out of the father. It's a chiddush. Koshik and the death of the father should get her out of the odoin. That was a logic, and logically it makes sense. I think you raised an eyebrow when we saw it on Thursday. You have to understand this kal v'chomer. The Achronim have big time. It's a very logical kal v'chomer because the sale of an Ama Ivri or an Eved Ivri are not really a sale. They're more like a lease or a rent. It's a limited amount of time of 6 years. So I don't know, the halacha is actually, it's very interesting. Let's say somebody rents a house. Let's say I rent someone's house, and the person died, and he's a ger toisha, he's a ger. He has no yorshim. Now, there's no contract. The guy died. So now, this house doesn't belong to anybody. So if that girl, her father died, what Rish Lakish says makes a lot of sense. Why? Because basically we're saying the father is dead, and she's only there by the house of the master because the father keeps Kilu being the koach, the rents her into the odoin. Once the father is dead, makes sense to say There's nobody to tell me what to do. She'll just break the dishes. Well, she won't break them and go out. Yeah, because she would say, what? The father I'm only here because of my father, he is dead. I'm just adding more logic to Rish Lakish. Yet, the Gemara says it's illogical. There's a pircha against Rish Lakish. One second, no question for the next. What's the pircha? Why is Rish Lakish's beautiful Kavachomer in a way illogical? Because we can question as follows. Mala simonin nishtana haguf, tomer b'misasav shekin lo nishtana haguf. Interesting. In other words, simonim are a stronger way to get out of anyone's authority because simonim, the body has changed. Her own body is different. It's a different body. So when the master bought her when she was pre 2 hairs, and now she has 2 hairs, it's a different person, says the Torah. It's a different person. She was a ktana, now she's a gdoila. Halachically and physically, she is different. If she would smoke a cigarette on Shabbos, b'mezid, in the park, I alone, yeah, Friday night, lo aleinu, yeah, science fiction. Then what? At the age of before 12 and a day and 2 hairs, we send her to Akshiva. And what? And if it's 12 and a day and she does that, in the times of Sanhedrin, and it's b'mezid, we take her to Skila, right? So you see, she's a different person be'etzem. That's why she gets out of the reshus of the Odoin. But she'enkin, the death of the father, is an exterior idea. It's an exterior factor. And that exterior factor is weaker. There's much more to say about it in Tosfos. Unfortunately, we don't have time. I would like to see this Tosfos only if we have time. But for now, this is what we're saying. That's why we say the Kal V'chomer of Rish Lakish is wrong. In other words, at the end of the day, you can have a nice Kal V'chomer, but at the end of the day, it makes more sense to say that the Shinui Haguf, like in Merube, the body that's different gets out of the master. If the body is exactly the same and just their father died, that's an exterior thing, and that is not as strong, not as effective to get her out of the domain of her master. For now, that is it, and I really would like to continue. And then if we have time, we'll see Toysus. We really don't have time. It's going to be the last session of questions now. Enjoy the freedom of speech, because that's the last. Okay. Tani Chada. Now, funnily enough, we're going to bring a brisa actually that's going to support Rish Lakish. After we sort of knocked out Rish Lakish's Kal V'chomer, we're trying now to bring counter proof for Rish Lakish. Tani Chada. One brisa says as follows: there are 2 brises that are going to contradict each other, and we're going to reconcile, and that would be a help, a way to endorse Rish Lakish, which would be a problem. Tani Chada. One brisa says, Enek is like ma'anak. Enek is what? The gifts that he gets. Enek Eved Ivri la'atzmoi. An Eved Ivri, he gets his own Enek. Nobody else tells the Eved Ivri to, nobody else can claim it. The Eved Ivri gets his own gifts. The Gemara is going to ask later, what's the Chiddush? Of course, he's a free man. The Enek Ama Ivriya la'atzmo. Oh, the Ama Ivriya is a Chiddush. And Ama Ivriya, she may leave before the age of 12. She's 10 years old, and she got a whopping amount of money from the master. Says brisa number 1, it's hers, don't touch it. Nobody can touch it, not the father, and clearly not anybody else. It's her own money. That sounds very nice and liberal and modern. The Tanya Idach, the other brisa, is not so much. Enek Ama Ivriya umetzi'oso le'avia. The Enek Ama Ivriya, when the Ama Ivriya goes free, right, the father is still alive, and she's not yet 12 and a half, which is in most cases, then what? The father gets the manak. You got a very nice check. She doesn't get a check. You got a lot of, wine, oil, goats, and sheep, and papayas, whatever you like. Everything goes to daddy. Will hopefully be mefarneser. It goes to the father. And by the way, even the metzia, that's again something interesting. While she was an Ama Ivriya, she was walking down the street on the way to the well or on the way to Osher Ad, and she rummaged a bit in the garbage. It took her some time. I'm doing this on purpose. It took her some time, and she found a very nice diamond ring worth 10,000, really nice ring, 10,000 shekels. Is that a nice ring? Very nice. 10,000 shekels. She doesn't get a 10,000 shekel or pounds. $10,000 pounds ring, yeah. And then from Hatton Gardens, and what? And she found, Hatton Gardens, yeah. And she found that who does it belong to? To the father, not to the master. She's working by the master all the time, and yet the Metzia still goes to the father, which again shows that even while she was the master, she's kind of still connected to the father. The master would say, no, what are you talking about? It took her 20 minutes to walk around there in that jewelry area in the garbage, and she found 20 minutes. In those 20 minutes, she could have what? She could have embroidered I don't know, tablecloth for me. Says the bride, it's true, the master only gets not the diamond ring of 10,000 pounds, he only gets the amount of money she makes in half an hour, right? I don't know, 30 shekels, yeah, maybe. Oh, wait a second. Leave Metzia alone for now. Metzia 7 is the whole story. There's a stira regarding the ma'anak, right? Clearly. One brisa says she keeps the ma'anak, the gifts of post-slavery, and the other brisa says that the father takes it. Brisa answers the Gemara, I have no problem with that. My love must be what? Like Rish Lakish. Oh, the nafka b'simonim. If she left b'simonim, the father is still alive, and she became 12 with 2 nice simonim, and now what? And now she belongs to the father. Of course, he belongs to the father because the father is alive. Oid avinu chai. He gets the manak. He gets the gifts. Oh, you know, when she goes free and she gets her own gifts, the nafkala b'misas av. Because the father's dead. Really, the father should be the owner. You know why she left slavery? Because the father died. Hey, RL, that sounds like Rish Lakish to me. Excuse me, what? In other words, the father died, and that's why she's going out. That's absolutely Rish Lakish. And because the father is dead, and her brothers and sisters and mother have nothing to do with her, no authority over her, that's why she gets it. So you see, to reconcile those brises, you use Rish Lakish logic. The return of Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish, here comes back. He comes again. Answers the Gemara, no, I'm so sorry. Idi ve'idi the nafkala v'simonin. Could be that in both cases, either she gets the gifts or the father gets the gift. Could be the reason she went out is simonim. It's 2 girls exactly leaving for the same reason. The 2 hairs finally came. She's finally free in both cases. Below Akasha, it's not difficult at all. Or the iselav or the leiselav. It's simple. Here the father is alive, and here the father is dead. In other words, the fact that the father is dead doesn't mean that that's the reason she was liberated. Actually, it's a difficult havamina to understand. Simply, you're right in logic. Really, the father deserves to get the gifts. The father is dead. She's a yesoma. She gets all the gifts for herself. But it doesn't mean that the fact he died is what caused her to go out. 2 things that are not nogea, right? Okay, today is Sunday, but that's not the reason why this is green. It's true that today's Sunday. It's also true this is green. The 2 have nothing to do with each other. Same thing over here. The father is dead. Yes, that's why she gets the gifts. Yes, it's not the reason why she's out. She's out because of simonim. Why not? Obviously. Makesha. Yes, she has a dead father. Her father died 2 years ago. It didn't happen the same day. No, forget. We're not in the Shlakish side now. The father died when she was 9. Because we are not in the Shlakish, we don't give a care, to say nice language. We don't care that he died. She stayed till the age of 12 because she's a Yisayma. Now that she got, she gets it herself. She gets her bank account. Like the Gemara. Now the Gemara is asking something, and I hope to later have question session and also to get to the Tosfos. Like the Gemara, if you noticed, at the beginning of the Brisa that spoke about who gets the gifts, well, when it comes to a girl, it's a big issue. Father, when there's no father, she's a Yisayma, she's an orphan, and it's her. Oh, that I understand is the Chiddush. I understand what the Bride said to accentuate, to tell me clearly the Enek Amma Hivriya goes to herself, excluding who? Lemiuti Achin. Even the Yesoima, it's a Chiddush, because one would say, well, if there's no father, who else would get it? Brothers. One would say, because brothers do inherit, who are the heirs of the father? Her brothers. She has brothers, 15 years old, 25 years old, 35 years old. They are big boys, and they inherit everything else that the father has. If so, wait a second, maybe they should also get the girls what? The girls matonos. Their little sister is finally free. She comes home. She came home with a gezunta bunch of kol tuv Eretz Yisrael, and they need the money. Maybe it goes to them. That's a chidush. It doesn't go to the brothers. It stays by her. She gets to eat all the fruit herself, or we create like an account, like a keren. What? Apotropos. The Tanya, it says in Raisa, when he talks about Eved Knaini, the only one that's clearly always being bequeathed to the children are the Eved Knaini. What's oisam? Oisam is a very extra word in the Torah. We know we talk about avodim. Why do I have to say it again? Oisam libneichem v'lo b'nosechem libneichem. The avodim knanim are bequeathed to the kinderlach and the yorshim. But the girl of a father, we're not talking about Amivriya, by the way. The girl, the biological girl of Reuven, he owns, he doesn't own her body, but he owns a lot of things to do with her. All her money, all her salary, all her mitzvah, the nisui, everything. The nedarim, that doesn't go to the brothers. Yeah? In other words, the person has no right to lehorish. What's lehorish? Bequeath. He has no right to bequeath. The zchus, the rights he has in his daughters don't go to the sons. They cannot marry her off. Only with the Rabbanon may institute, they did institute that the brothers can marry her off, but it's very, very flexible marriage. That we'll get to that later. Ella, we're only beginning of the question. Ella enek eved ivri la'atzmo pshita ella leman. Why did the Brisa start off by saying, the Eved Ivri, who's the Eved Ivri? Let's portray an Eved Ivri. He was Chozer B'tshuva from the silly theft he did 6 years ago. He's an absolutely free, probably frum person, the age of 35, yeah? He's a free person. Even when he was an Eved Ivri, it wasn't exactly slavery. Yeah, it's not what you imagine from Uncle Tom's Cabin, yeah? And what? And now he's a completely free man. Says the Brisa, he gets his own money. Really? What would I thought? El Alaman, who else is supposed to go to? To the Medina, to the Texas? Who would take it? Who should get it if not him? Omar of Yosef. So now, very interesting answer. Says of Yosef, Yud Keres Kachazina Hocho. Yud Keres means as follows. According to a very big Machlokas Rashi and Ritva, Rashi says Yud Keres, the letter Yud, as you know, is the smallest letter. Keret is a Hebrew word based on the Aramaic word karta. Karta, neturi karte. What's karta? A city, a town. Keret is a very fancy word in Hebrew for city. Yeah, keret. Yeah. Your new word for today, keret. Keret is a city. If you want to impress an Israeli, yeah, half of them don't know that word either. Yeah, what? Kirya, nice. I never thought of the connection. Yud keres kachazina hocho. Says Rav Yosef, I see over here, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. That's what he's saying. There's a little yud over here. You're making this into a whole town. In other words, I don't see the question. In other words, he probably thought that the Brisa only mentioned the Eved Ivri, agav the Am Ivriya. You're making a big question out of nothing. This is what Rashi says, yeah? In other words, why did we mention Eved Ivri getting it for himself? We only mention it as a preparation, as an introduction to the big Chiddush of the Am Ivriya who gets it for herself. And that is a Chiddush, yeah? Now, the Ritva says the other way around. Says Yud Keres is the name of a man who was a very tough person, and he was even very, very tough with his own family. Yeah, today you'd call him abusive. So he says, I really don't know how to answer. This question is as tough as Mr. Yud Keret. Yeah, in other words, it really is a question. Just the other way around from Rashi. Interesting. Abai Omar, Abai is giving us an answer. Achim Rav Sheshes. Oh, Mani, Rav Sheshes says as follows. You know who's the author of this Brisa? Tutoihu. This Brisa was written by the Talmidim, the people of the city of the Tutoi. I'm pretty sure that's what Tutoi means. I think so. The Tanya. It says Tutoi Oimer or Oimrim. I'm not sure if Tutoi is one person. I saw something in one of the Perushim. Tutoi is either a name of a Tana, of an Amoira, and an Amoira actually. Tutoi is either, the Tana of the Brisa, or it's Tutoi Oimrim. It's people of the school of thought or the Tana of Tutoi. What do they say? Loi. As we said a few days ago, remember? That is definitely a clear answer. What did we say? Remember, there's a concept called Shiabuda de Abnoson. What does it mean, Shiabuda de Abnoson? If I owe money to Peretz, and Peretz owes money to Yitzchok, yeah, I owe to Peretz, Peretz owes Yitzchok, Yitzchok can come to me directly, and all my money and all my nechosim are meshuba directly to Yitzchok, and Yitzchok can come to me, and I can't tell Yitzchok, I don't deal with you, I want to deal with Peretz. No, Peretz can be out of the picture, because at the end, that's the whole Rav Nosson business. There are many nefkaminas for that. Here we say no. Here we say, let's say the Eved is now owed money by who? By the Balabais. Balabais has to give money to the Eved. Yes, it's like a debt, halachic debt. He finishes 6 years. It's not a nice option. Look how nice we are. You have to give him money. Beis Din would force you, as far as I know. Unless we learn otherwise, it sounds like that. Now, master owes Eved how much? How much we'll see? A lot of fruit and vegetables and nice oil. Now, the Eved, let's say, besides nothing to do with his theft or anything, he happens to owe money to someone. He owes money to a third party for nothing to do with the Abdus. Now comes the person who is the collector of who wants to collect his debt from the Eved and would say to the master, hey, master, stop right there. Don't give him the gifts. Don't give him the oil and the wine and the, I don't know, the watermelons. Give it straight to me. Usually he would be allowed to say it. He's able to say, here he's not. Here the Torah says, here when it comes to the Eved, as we saw some time ago, the Eved should keep it, and the other Baal Chov has no right to snatch it off the hands of the Eved. And according to the Rambam, even after it's already in the hands of the Eved, the Baal Chov cannot take it from him. That's Kilu, no touch money, untouchable money. That's the Chiddush of the Rambam. That's a good answer for here. That's the Chiddush. The Eved Ivri, he keeps his own matanos, and nobody else can take them, not even his Baal Chov. That's absolutely a Chiddush. Yes, for sure. Very good. I would stop here. I would take questions. I'll give you time for questions now. Chabal, we didn't see the Tosfos, but okay, in your free time, I recommend you look at Tosfos Dibur Maschil Ma L'Simoni. The beginning of the Tosfos is very interesting. What? There was a Tosfos before. Oh, you have a whole bunch of death of Tosfos. With Omarova, right? Oh, Yes, he says. Maybe tomorrow we'll do the Tosfos in Bli Neder at the beginning. Remind me. Atzlacha bracha. Thank you to everybody here in Avos Shalom. Thank you to our viewers in Torah Anytime in our YouTube channel. Atzlacha bracha. Thank you. Have an amazing, terrific week. The Sheikh should come here soon. No other solution. Geula Shlema, and questions are coming soon too. Questions, then Mashiach.